a risk that has very low likelihood of occurring, like let's say once in 100 years, and the impact is negligible, well, you're not going to allocate any resources to dealing with that risk. But on the other hand, if it's a risk that happens every day, and if it did happen, it would be disastrous to the organization, then you're going to have to deal with that one right away.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of It Depends, a podcast series brought to you by Hanseman Weeble. You know that if you've ever talked to an accountant, they've told you, well, it depends. This podcast series is for business owners, leaders, operators, accountants, or someone just wanting to learn more about the accounting industry. I'm your host, Clarissa Hoffman. Today, I'm joined by Ed Schmitz to talk about risk management. Thanks for joining me, Ed.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm an audit partner and advisory partner at Hanseman Weeble. I'm also a certified fraud examiner and a peer reviewer looking at other firms' audit practices.
So today we're talking about risk management. Can you tell us a little bit about the types of risks that organizations might face?
Well, risks are everywhere. All organizations face risks. Publicly traded companies, privately held companies, nonprofit organizations, they all face risks. So the various types of risks, some categories could be strategic risks, operational risks, compliance risks, and then financial risks.
Do you find that there are differences in the types of risks depending on the type of organization? The key differentiating being for-profit organizations and nonprofit organizations.
I think all organizations are going to have those same categories of risks. Now, there's dozens of risks underneath each of those. So those might be more specific to one or the other. But the various categories that I just mentioned, basically all organizations are going to have those risks.
What are the benefits of understanding the types of risks that your organization face?
Organizations that go through this risk management process are going to have a better chance of getting through these various risk events when they occur. But not all risks are bad. Organizations that don't take any risks are not going to be able to reach the full potential of the organization. So even nonprofits, you don't think of maximizing value of a nonprofit, but if they don't take any risks, then they're not going to be able to have the same impact on society that they otherwise could if they had taken some risks.
And I'm sure throughout that risk management process, you probably identify some risks that you didn't even think that you were susceptible to.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of going through that process, identifying all those risks and assessing what the impact could be to the organization.
You told us about different categories of risk. Can you provide some examples?
Sure. So the strategic risks, when you think of strategy, you think of high-level risks that could impact the objectives of the organization going forward in the long term. So those types of risks are going to be more like market risks. So maybe there's going to be changing customer behavior. So, for example, customers don't go to a store anymore and rent movies. You wouldn't want to start that business now. But then also just strategic risk would be leadership and governance. So a lack of succession planning and lack of board oversight could impact an organization going out 5, 10, 15 years. So an example of an operational risk would be people-related risks. Do they have high turnover? Do they lose key people? Those risks would very negatively impact an organization. Mm-hmm. But then also just the industry itself. Is it highly seasonal, capital intensive, things like that? And then you've got external event risk in that category too. So you've got pandemic risks that nobody thought of 10 years ago. But then also natural disasters, wildfires or hurricanes, things like that.
So certainly important to understand. Can you walk us through what the risk management process looks like at a high level?
Sure. So really the first step is to identify the risks. So we talked about the categories of risks, but then really going through, and again, I mentioned there's dozens and dozens of risks in each of those categories, but really identifying the risks of that organization and then assessing those risks. So what's the the likelihood of the risk occurring, and then what would be the impact if it did occur. Once that's done, then you would prioritize the risks. So a risk that has very low likelihood of occurring, like let's say once in 100 years, and the impact is negligible, well, you're not going to allocate any resources to dealing with that risk. But on the other hand, if it's a risk that happens every day, and if it did happen, it would be disastrous to the organization, then you're going to have to deal with that one right away. So that's the prioritizing of the risk. And then at the end, once you've identified which ones you're going to prioritize, then you can respond.
What resources does Hanseman Webull have for risk management?
Well, we have diagnostics on our website, one for businesses and then one for nonprofits. And that would be the starting point just to kind of gauge where you are now in this process. And then from there, we'd be able to help you walk through that enterprise risk management process that we just mentioned.
Thank you so much for your time today, Ed. This was very helpful.
I was glad to be here. So what's your next topic?
Well, it depends.